Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. Oh my gosh. So, I'm recording this to come out on Patreon on Christmas Day, and it's going to be on New Year's Day on YouTube. So, is this episode going to be the best Christmas gift / start to the new year? Or am I gonna regret my decisions? Because we are on episode 19 of season 3 of Attack on Titan, The Basement. We're finally here. We're finally to the damn basement. It only took 3 seasons and 18 episodes to get here, but we're here. So, I'm trying not to freak out, but I'm really excited. So, as I'm recording this, episode 16 has just came out on Patreon, and episode 14 has come out on YouTube. So I'm recording a little bit ahead because spoilers, and because it's the holiday season, I need to record ahead anyway. But I've got notes from the comments from episodes 14 and 16 that I do want to go over beforehand. Just beforehand, and I'm sure a lot of the things y'all were addressing, I'm like, yep, I know exactly what happens because I watched episode 17 and 18. So the last 3 episodes, oh my god, they were so good. The last 3 episodes were so good for lots of different reasons, and a lot of these notes kind of connect to it. But I feel like we've ended Act 2 of Season 3, and so now these last 4 episodes are going to push into the final part of season 3 and going to season 4. I'm going to do a poll on Patreon about a couple things with season 4, but I am really happy. Thank you, patron saint, you saintly person. On Twitter, this person was like, hey, because there's been a talk, I've had a lot of you comment and say that I need to watch in season 4 the Blu-ray version because they fix up some animation issues, there's some edits. I know with Skate the Infinity, the Blu-rays cleaned up a lot of animation edits with that series, and so I get what they're talking about. And so I thought, I've not looked up any merchandise for Attack on Titan up until now. I did just pre-order a Hello Kitty Erwin plushie because I figured, I was like, okay, Erwin's dead, sadly, so I can maybe look up. I'd heard Sanrio and Hello Kitty was doing a collaboration with Attack on Titan, and somebody on Twitter posted an Erwin picture, and I'm like, I wonder if those are on sale yet. So I just did Erwin Sanrio, and that plushie popped up, and I was like, yes. So I pre-ordered that because I'm hopeless. But I was like, okay, I will look up the season 4 part 1 Blu-ray and just order it. Well, it doesn't come out till February, so I was pretty bummed about that. I guess there had been a early release, a Japanese release, and I have a Japanese DVD player, but if the Japanese release doesn't have subtitles, then it doesn't do me any good. So this person on Twitter, again, thank you, they contacted me and was like, hey, I have some downloads if you're okay with it, and there are the Blu-ray quality with subtitles. And I was like, yes, please. So you're a patron saint, thank you. All of my love, but I have all of the Blu-ray episodes now with the Blu-ray quality with subtitles. I just have them saved on a flash drive. They are there when they're ready to go. So I'm like, all right. So yes, to answer all of your questions, I will have the Blu-ray versions to watch. And it's kind of exciting because with Modao Zushi, Wushin on Patreon had sent me the episodes for season 1 and season 2, and I was like, okay, so I would just pop them up. I didn't have a thumbnail, I didn't have any preview for the episode, it was just the episode, which is nice because that is the one thing with Funimation and Crunchyroll, they have a thumbnail, so you do see something. Usually there's not anything spoilery with it, but you do see something. With these, I'm going to go in completely blind, which is going to be awesome. So to answer all your questions, yes, for season 4, at least for part 1, I will have the Blu-ray quality with subtitles. I won't have to go to a sketch site for it. I'll be able to watch it on there. And hopefully, because I'm watching a downloaded version, it won't lag like Funimation's been doing. So that's exciting. So there's that. But I'm sorry this is going to be a long intro, but I do have notes since it's been a couple episodes since I've had notes. So I want to note out that going back to the episodes prior, Tony sent me on Patreon, talked about how Marco was kind of like Keith. And I really like that comparison, showing how someone who seems to be inconsequential or not special has a huge impact on the story. Keith has had a huge impact on this story. And Marco keep coming up in the story. Marco's death and everything has had such an impact on the characters of this story. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. Back in season 1 with Marco, you're like, oh, he's just this character. He's not going to have this significant impact. Yeah, he's dramatically affected this show, and they keep tying back to him. I'm like, let him rest in peace, you know? And also noted the idea of Armin and Eren saving each other. I thought this was a really cool thing too, now that we can talk about Armin being alive. But the idea that Armin has saved Eren from Armin has saved Aaron during Trost with what he's told him. They've saved everybody through knowing how to search the walls for Reiner. The whole thing with Bertolt, basically. Armin has saved Aaron and the others, and then Aaron, in turn, has saved Armin, from the Santa Titan twice, inadvertently, when he busted out of him the second time, and then also in episode 18, with the speech to Levi and everything. So, yeah, basically, because of Aaron's speech to Levi, and Levi seeing Armin and Aaron and all them interacting, it kind of saved Armin's life. I'm going to talk about Mikasa and the character growth this girl has had the last 3 episodes. Mikasa's character growth has been crazy, and some of you have all noticed, even back as early as episode 14, the idea of Mikasa's actions, her not being as impulsive as she has been in the past, and thinking more and restraining herself and holding back like she should. When you think back to season 1, Mikasa was like just gung-ho after Annie without thinking, and Levi had to stop her. And even up until part 2, Mikasa was still making some split decisions, but now she's kind of holding herself back and thinking about things and trusting Aaron and Armin, which I really like with Mikasa's character. And then there's the whole thing about just, somebody noted on Patreon, Flock. His VA is the same VA as Octagawa from Bungo Stray Dogs, and Tadashi from Skate the Infinity, and Raichi from Ace of the Diamond, which are series that I've watched. I remember back in season 1, it was around the same time I was watching Bungo Stray Dogs, I asked someone, I was like, man, Octagawa's VA, is he ever in Attack on Titan? And somebody was like, yeah, he's in it. I was like, okay. And now we finally get his VA. And you can kind of hear when Flock has his big speech last episode, I was like, okay, I hear Octagawa in that. Cool. Nice to know. But yeah, the idea of there's a connection between Marlowe and Flock in the same... Marlowe basically, in episode 16, Marlowe kind of keeps Flock in check the same way that Jean keeps Connie and Sasha in check. And I like the parallels of Marco and Jean, which is funny because if you go back to episode 4 in Trust, Jean and Marlowe had a lot of interactions in that episode. So I thought that was pretty cool. And Marlowe and Connie, or Flock and Connie, they had noted this on Patreon, how similar their characters were. And I'm like, yeah, they're both very emotional characters. Connie and Flock both have very emotional connections in this story, just on different spectrums. Like Flock is an interesting character. I don't know where his character is going to go at this point. I'm really excited. Don't spoil me, but I'm really excited to see what they do with his character, because he kind of has a different perspective than some other characters in the show. It's very interesting. And then, yeah, just the idea about Erwin being a con man that needed to be in charge of... I want to note this, because there's been a lot of talk about the con man thing with Erwin back from episode 16. And I like the idea that the Survey Corps, you needed to be a con man to kind of run the show with the Survey Corps. Because if you think about it, the Survey Corps, they're like a suicidal group all the time. Like, from the start of this series, it's established that the Survey Corps, it's a very thankless job, and you're probably gonna die. And the people that are in the Survey Corps have a really strong conviction and a desire to either get outside the wall or seek revenge to family who have fallen to the Titans, or there's some reason they're there. But it's not for wealth and fame, right? It's not for wealth and happiness. It's a very thankless, disgusting job. And so to keep the morale of your troops and to keep people wanting to join the Survey Corps, you almost had to be a salesman. You got to kind of be a con man to keep people in. And Erwin was perfect for that, because he could sell it. He could be honest. Like people were talking about in his speech in episode 16, he makes, at the very beginning of it, when Flock's questioning, if things are meaningless and we're all just going to our deaths, and Erwin's like, yes, we are going to die. But then he riles them all up with that speech about their lives having meaning for the future generation. You can tell that in certain moments, Erwin's very genuine, but then he has to put on the persona of the commander. He has to become the con man to get them all riled up and to go through with what he's suggesting. So I find that really interesting. Also, Christopher Peterson noted the idea that Levi was never really part of the chain of command to take over. Erwin was like, it's going to be Hanji, and then the person after you, and the person after them. But Levi was never directly mentioned. And I agree with Christopher in thinking that Levi is more of like a special ops leader. Levi is good to be a leader of a small group. But in my opinion, Levi is far too emotional to be a commander like Erwin or Hanji. Hanji and Erwin can be emotional, but they know how to make a decision and keep their emotion in check and out of the equation. And Levi says that he does that, but we've seen time and time again, Levi's good at making a poker face, but he is very emotionally driven by his decisions. So him being in charge of the entire Survey Corps probably wouldn't work out. And I like Levi better as the leader of a small group like the Levi Squad with that. The idea that Erwin's slavery to the truth it worked for so long in this series because it was still aligning with humanity's agenda in saving humanity. But then in this last set of episodes, towards the end, it was starting to not align anymore. The decisions that needed to be made for humanity weren't aligning with Erwin's decision to go towards the truth. And that's when Levi had to step in and help him free himself from the shackles of that slavery to the truth and make the right decision. And the heartbreaking part about it is it's the right decision for humanity, but it's the destroyer of dreams for both Erwin and Levi, who just wanted Erwin to be safe. So that they both work together to choose the selfless option, and it's really sad and heartbreaking. So thanks, Isayama. Thanks, show. The other thing Christopher noted was that I hadn't thought about this, but Armin's now the Colossal Titan. And in the last episode, I was like, oh, Armin's going to be the Colossal Titan. What's that going to look like? But Christopher Peterson noted back in episode 16 that it really took Eren a long time to learn how to use the Titan powers. So Armin may not immediately be able to become the Colossal Titan. And I'm kind of okay with that. I think Armin's going to have a lot to deal with when he wakes up from this. So it might be better if he doesn't become the Colossal Titan immediately. Might be better if that doesn't happen right off the bat. You know? So that should be okay. But other than that, the only other thing I had down here was just the idea of the con man and Erwin. And a lot of this stuff we'll talk about more in the recap video. But I'm having second thoughts about how to restructure the entire recap because I don't know if I can do... I think with these episodes and how dense they have been with character development and themes and symbolism, as dense as these episodes have been from episode 12 on... or episode 13 on, I don't know if I can structure the recap the same way I've done in the past. I may have to restructure it to be more cohesive. And so I've got to think about that. But in any case, I've got my eggnog because it's the holiday season. It's time for the damn basement. Episode 56. I have been told there is a post-credit scene. So, good to know. There's a post-credit scene. I'm fine with that. Sounds great. What? I've talked for 12 minutes. Let's dive in, shall we? I'm glad to have comments again. That's the one thing about watching ahead is I don't get to see your comments. And so I do like the feedback that the discussion and dialogue we get started. But we are finally going to start the basement, episode 19 of season 3, part 2, episode 56 here in 3, 2, 1. Oh my God. Here we go, guys. We're finally getting answers. We are finally getting to the other side of the wall, to outside of the wall. We're finally getting to where Grisha came from. I knew it was a city. I knew there had to be another civilization. There had to be something So there is another civilization outside the wall. There's so many questions. There's so many questions, such as how far is this civilization from where the Wall Kingdom is? How far is this? Are we talking like 10 miles, 100 miles, 1,000 miles? Like how close is it to the outside of Wall Maria? I can't imagine that it's super close. I can't imagine it's super far away because Bertolt and Annie and Reiner and Marcel went there. So I can't imagine it's close, but at the same time, I don't know. I can't imagine it's close, but at the same time, it could be pretty far away because they had freaking Zeppelins. I was waiting for the Zeppelins when they did the hot air balloon. When Armin's parents did the hot air balloon, I joked. I was like, where's the Zeppelins in this world? And there's Zeppelins. So, okay. Yeah, like talking about a life of luxury. And I'm getting World War II vibes. I'm getting World War II Germany. I'm getting the fact that they have to wear the armbands. I'm getting, what it makes me think of is the Jewish population in Germany during World War II. They had to wear the armbands when they were outside in the streets. They had to wear the armbands with the sun symbol on them. With the sun symbol. I'm not getting good vibes. And then the fact that it looks very relegated by the military, that they're controlling who comes in and who goes out. It's like a state of, doesn't look good. Yeah. The funny thing in all this is that we'll probably find out that the Wall Kingdom has just as much oppression as this other kingdom does. Grisha may have been doing pretty well with his fancy medicine on the Wall Kingdom side. He may have thought that was a better option. But we're going to talk about that picture. We're going to talk about that. I have a theory, a crazy crackpot theory that's probably wrong, but we're going to talk about it because, it's weird because in this world that you show in the post-credit scene, in that world, there's no Titans around. So it's funny, there's this civilized world, but there's no Titans there, right? Whereas with this Wall Kingdom world, like in between the two worlds are all the Titans. So I'm so curious. And the parallels, the fact that Grisha and his sister Faye, I'm guessing Faye's going to die because why have we not mentioned her? Why does Aaron not know he has an Aunt Faye? Which is funny. It's like Spider-Man. It's like Aunt May and Uncle Ben. It's like Aunt May, Faye and Grisha. Okay. Yeah, we're going to talk about this. This is I was actually really surprised by this episode because we got nothing. we got the basement. We finally got there, and we got the reveal of what's in the basement. These 3 books, which is funny. Isayama's rule of 3, right? He has the 3 books, the rule of 3. I'm glad they took them back with them. I'm wondering how much they read before they went back because we didn't see their faces, right? We didn't see the faces of Mikasa or any of them. We just saw Hanji carrying the book. So however much they read, that's going to be the question of them going. And they went back to Walsina. We're going to talk about this. They went back to the wall. I want to talk about this because I had my doubts because we've got 3 episodes left. I had my doubts. And it looks like at least the next episode is going to be a flashback. I had my doubts, but I was really curious to know if they were going to go back or not. And I will talk about this, but oh my gosh, there's a lot happening. And most of this episode was building up to the basement and then previewing. So I'm guessing the next episode, at least, I'm guessing maybe the next, could be the rest of the season. We might not touch base back with the present timeline until the very end of the season. We might not, because you got 3 books worth of stuff. And the idea of the photograph, they don't know what a photograph is. That never crossed my mind, right? Because it's one of those things in this show where you don't ever see it, so you question whether or not it even exists. And in this show, they don't know what a photograph is. So they're like, it looks too real to be an illustration. Because that's the thing. And if you think back, all the posters in season 1, all the stuff that the Wall Church had, none of them were photographs. They were all hand drawn. Makes sense, right? And there's no portraits of anybody. That's the other thing too. You know, in some anime and in other media, you see like in a rich home, you see like a big portrait of a family, or there was a portrait of Connie's parents, but I guess it was an illustration now. Yeah, that's the thing. Because at the time, back when Mike found the picture, or not Mike, back when Moblit found the picture of Armin's mom and dad, I thought it was a photograph because in the anime, it just looks like a black and white picture. No, it was a drawing. And I didn't realize that at the time. I was like, oh, that's a photograph of Connie's parents. It was an illustration because they don't know what photographs are. So we're going to talk about that. But it's so good to be so close to some form of answer. It's like Isayama, this episode was such a tease because Isayama's just like, just reeled us in slowly. He's put the carrot on a string and he's reeling us in. He's like, okay, we finally made it to the basement. Are you sure you want to know? That's what this episode seems like. The end of this episode where we get the preview of Grisha's sister and his mom and the world that they live in. There's no Zeke, but I'm going to talk about that. I have a theory. But in that moment, it's funny because it's almost like Isayama is toying with us and being like, okay, here's a preview of what's to come. Are you sure you want to keep going? And of course, yes, the answer is yes. I've waited this long to find out answers to this damn show. We're going to find answers. But we need to go through this episode. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, starting out with the OP. It feels great to be able to watch the OP, by the way. It feels good to be able to watch the OP. And I noticed like the rainbows and the colors, like the rainbow splatters of blood and everything, and the hues, the lens flares. It's very beautiful. This OP is actually gorgeous. I really like it. But yeah, just a quick reminder that Bertolt's dead in this OP. It's gonna suck watching this every time and seeing like, man, the Colossal Titan, Bertolt's dead. I love the DNA strands making the Titans. It's great. And then there's the Beast Titan. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. So with the Beast Titan, I was going to comment on this, and it's going to come back up when we get to the end of this episode, but I was doing a thing on Twitter where I had like 4 stills that were going to be the thumbnail, and it was actually for episode 14. So it was for, or episode 13. It was actually back for episode 13, and there was a still of Aaron looking fierce, and there was another still, and then there was a still of Erwin, and a still of the Beast Titan standing next to each other being like, who will win, humanity or the Titans? Who will perish? And as I was posting it on Twitter, I thought to myself, I was like, the way that the Beast Titan hair lays is the exact same way that Aaron's hair lays. It lays in a very similar fashion. At the time, I was like, that's probably just an animation thing. It's probably nothing to it. I don't think so anymore. I think that was a hint that Zeke is related to Grisha and Aaron. And we're going to talk about that because I have a theory. But yeah, God, the animation. And yeah, so Armin figuring out that he's Bertolt. Oh, they ate Bertolt. He's the Colossal Titan. Yeah, the whole... God, we got so much to talk about in this. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, the ending shot of Erwin amongst the dead, and then the 2 birds of freedom for the Survey Corps. And then we see the wall, and overlooking the wall, there's a desert. And then what's beyond the desert? We don't know yet. But we're to the damn basement. The basement fake out was just... I was going to get nervous there for a second if there was nothing in that basement. And they intended for you not to think there was anything in the basement. But thank God it was only intentional. I was like, oh my God. When they opened up that door and there was nothing there, for a second I thought that was Isayama being like, surprise! I was going to be like, oh my God, are you kidding? Erwin died and there's nothing there? But no, there is stuff there. We'll talk about this. So yeah, so the last thing that Armin remembered was Bertolt transforming and Mikasa telling him to get down. It's so funny that that's the last thing Armin remembers. And then the voice in this, the voice saying that it hurts, was actually Sasha's voice. But in the moment, we don't know who it is. But this imagery is in the OP, but this imagery of the giant Titan head looking down at Armin and dissolving. And it's the skull. And it's Sasha saying it hurts so bad, but it doesn't sound like Sasha. It sounds like Bertolt. And then Armin's sitting up, and he's still dazed in the moment. He's got a Survey Corps jacket on, but he looks up, and there's the Colossal Titan staring him in the face. And half of the Titan is gone, and it's just the skeleton, and the other half is still Bertolt. Oh my God. And then the Armin staring up at the Colossal Titan, and the tears coming down, and then just staring back. And in that moment, I feel like the Colossal Titan crying and Armin seeing that, I feel like that's the passing of the power, right? Is that's Bertolt's last moment. It's kind of freaky and disturbing that I know that Sasha's saying that it hurts, but in that moment, you know it's Bertolt, and Bertolt's like because Armin is basically, if we go with the logic we've gone the last couple episodes, Armin's basically ate Bertolt's soul, and that's with him now. That's kind of scary and kind of weird. But it's true. And that kind of goes with Christopher's theory about the power taking a while to manifest. So it seems like it's not even halfway. It seems like the Colossal Titan's power is halfway into Armin now, but it's still absorbing into Armin's system. Armin is still absorbing the Colossal Titan's power. Bertolt, there's still remnants of Bertolt there. Like, it's not fully merged, which is kind of crazy. So it makes sense. It's probably going to take a while before Armin can use that power. And that's okay, I think, because Armin, he's got a lot to deal with emotionally in this episode. What I'm curious about is, like I talked about in the last reaction, I'm curious about, one, how, like, we ended this episode showing them atop the walls to this grand reception. And it's like, surprise, there's only 9 of us out of 200. We reclaimed Maria, but it was a costly thing. Costly indeed. I'm very curious how the council is going to take the fact that Erwin died and Armin got the power. And I'm wondering, the thing of it is that Levi isn't going to mince words. Levi's going to be like, it was my decision, and in the moment, this was the best one. And I don't think they're going to like that, especially Niall, because Niall was really good friends with Erwin. So when Niall finds out that Erwin's died, he's gonna feel really upset about it, and Niall's not gonna be happy to know that. I don't foresee Niall reacting well to this news that Erwin's dead and he didn't get the Titan powers. Zachary probably doesn't care. Zachary is in it for himself. Zachary's more interested in just, he's kind of lackadaisy about everything. Pixis will probably, I think Niall will be the most upset, and Pixis will probably be upset, but he'll probably in the end accept it. I could see Pixis being the most accepting of this decision, Niall being the least accepting, and Zachary really not caring. And then Historia, that's going to be interesting to see how I think she'll be fine with it too, because it's Armin. But it's going to be curious to see what she ends up. I think if there's dissent among the ranks about the decision, Historia will be the one to shut them up and be like, I'm queen and I say it's okay. Which is going to be hilarious because in part 1 of season 3, Levi was threatening her in the manga and she, did the little punch to get back at him. But it's going to be funny if Historia is the saving grace in all of this to Levi's actions. And he has to be like, oh, I'm glad you're a queen. Glad you decided to go on with that, So I'm very nervous for them at the end of this episode. And of course, they're probably going to skip away to talk about Grisha's story for the next episode. And so there's that. But I am a little bit nervous because I think when we touch back on the present, there's going to be that moment of dissent and the townspeople are going to be pissed off because all these people died. And Sheena's a wreck. So there's that. But for now, they ended on a happy note and then they touch over to Grisha's story. So that's interesting. But yeah, so poor Sasha, I feel bad for her because she looks really injured. Like she looks like she's really injured. Like her whole chest is bleeding and she's commenting about how it hurts. Like when she's passed out and still commenting on how it hurts, that's not good. And Armin lifts up the blanket there and sees that she's really wounded. And he's so concerned. He's like, what happened? And then, oh my God, y'all, Aaron running over and the look of concern on his face, and you don't see it in his face, but he's about to cry. Aaron, my dude, and him hugging Armin. Guys, y'all, I love Aaron in this, where he's just so happy that he's back. And Armin's like, what happened? Huh? And that's when Levi shows up, and bless his heart, Levi, he's still, you can tell he's very upset still because Erwin's dead. And Armin's like, what happened? And Aaron's like, he doesn't know. And Armin's like, I remember Bertolt becoming a Titan. And he's like, what else happened? And Levi's like, great, you don't remember anything. You don't remember as far back as you need to. And Aaron just looks so guilty. Aaron's face, he looks so guilty. Like he wishes that Armin would have remembered. And then I guess Levi puts out the signal to let them know that Armin is okay. And then Levi's like, Aaron, you get to bring him up to speed because this was partially your decision. And then we get to see everybody's glance. So Connie and Jean and Mikasa and Flock and Hanji, they all know Armin is awake. And that look of Armin finding out everything. Because yeah, basically, he doesn't remember sacrificing himself. So, which is kind of sad in a way. I'm kind of sad that Armin doesn't remember that part. I almost wish that Armin would have remembered up to the point where he burned. Not that he remembered the pain of it, but that he remembered that amazing speech that he gave about self-sacrificing. I'm kind of sad that he doesn't remember that. Because I'm like, that was like your big character moment and you forgot it. I'm like, but maybe he'll remember it later. Maybe it'll come back to him. Celine Dion will start playing and it'll all come back to him now, one of those things. I hope for that because that was such a good character moment for him. And if he doesn't remember it, it's kind of sad. But yeah, Aaron basically had to tell him that, yes, you were burnt to a crisp. Erwin was about to die. We had to choose. We chose you. We turned you into a Titan. You didn't know it. And you ate Bertolt. So you ate the Colossal Titan. No big deal. It's just a normal day. I think Armin's reaction is pretty spot on for the situation. And Levi's like, okay, did you get him up to speed? And Armin puking is pretty. I like though that Armin in that moment, Armin doesn't question. The first thing he questions is the fact that the scout regiment died. Like I think that's very telling of Armin's character. That the first thing he asks about is that they're the only 9 left. Yeah, 9 out of 200. And I also like if you look at this combination of them all sitting there, Aaron and Mikasa and Levi are on one side of Armin. Connie is looking after Sasha, which is adorable. Jean is sitting beside Connie. Hanji is in front of them like the commander should be. Flock is way over by himself with the telescope. Flock is way over by himself. Clearly, Flock is, I like the symbolism that Flock is not on board with this decision. He doesn't like it. And he's off by himself. Like, that's a very telling representation in that moment. And it seems like they saved 2 rounds of Thunder Spears, and they got canisters of gas, which is good, and they got sleeping bags and all that gear there. So they did manage to scrounge up some gear left over, but they can't find any survivors, except for the 9 of them. Yeah. And I like Jean says for the time being, and the fight ended 4 hours ago, and they've been looking for survivors. I like that Connie is watching over Sasha. And then Armin's trying to piece it all back together. He's like, okay, we sealed the walls up. Yeah, and then the Rhino, the Beast Titan, and the one other escaped. The quadruped escaped. Mm-hmm. And Bertolt was captured. And there was a dispute. Yeah, dispute's a nice word for it. There was nearly a knockout, drag out. And yeah, and I wondered this. Yeah, and Armin's reaction, I turned into a Titan and ate Bertolt. Yeah, that would be my reaction too. I'd be like, well, I was a cannibal. Awesome. Cool. Didn't even remember it. Good to know. And poor Aaron. Yeah, because Aaron went through that exact same thing when he found out about Grisha. Aaron went through that exact same thing, and he knows exactly how Armin feels. That's kind of the beauty of all this in the weirdest way, is I never thought in this series that Armin and Aaron would be in a situation where they were kind of on equal footing, because they are now, right? Aaron and Armin are kind of on equal footing because they're both the Colossal Titan, and then he's got the coordinate. So, yeah, and poor Aaron, like Aaron's facial expressions here watching his friend suffer through this, and then Jean, of course, offering the water to Armin, like meaning he had to get up and walk over to him, is really sweet. Mm-hmm. But yeah. And then Armin being like, okay. And I wondered in the last episode, I'm like, of course Armin would be like, why didn't you give this to Erwin? Armin's decision would have been to give it to Erwin. Of course it would have been. And so Levi's pissed off because he's like, oh, didn't you tell him, Aaron? Why do I have to say it? Yeah, and Armin's like, wouldn't Erwin have been the right one to bring back? Why did you give me the injection? And Levi's like, well, I thought that Aaron would have told you this. And I love that he just kicks Aaron. He's just like, he's so physically rough with Aaron. And Aaron just expects it at this point. And he's like, well, your 2 friends here didn't seem to think so. They stood up to me and prepared to draw blood. And Aaron and Mikasa are like, we'll take whatever punishment comes. Because yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. But yeah, they're probably going to face some sort of punishment because Hanji's like, yeah, you'll be disciplined for insubordination. You attacked your higher ranking officer. Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that in the last episode, but that's very true. Aaron and Mikasa will probably have to go through some form of punishment. But Hanji says, we can punish you, but does taking the punishment allow you to do anything? And they're like, no. And then Levi, the funny thing is Hanji's like, yeah, we can punish you for insubordination, but you knew that we were going to do that. You knew there was a chance of that anyway, and you still went through it. So what good's the punishment going to do? It's not going to, it's not like you're going to do this again. You're not going to find another Titan shifter and go through the same thing again. But then Levi stands up for them and says that in the end of it all, it was my decision. So we made you guys go away. We took you away from the scene, and I was going to give it to Erwin, and then I changed my mind. And then Levi says, no, I chose this to be the place where Erwin dies. Ugh. And the shot of him in that house, I'm assuming, I don't know if did they find a house and just sat him in it? I don't know if I'm assuming this is in the past, but I don't know. The shot of him in that home. What I don't know, and don't spoil me on this, I'm sure we'll find out by the end of the season, but I'm wondering if they left Erwin there, if they left his body there in Shiganshina. I would hope that they took him, but no, because the other bodies were left there too, and I don't know if they'd want to bring... I'll have to look at the very end of the episode to see if they brought Erwin back to Walrose, or if they just left him on the bed like that to just... But they didn't bury him. I'd be like, I wouldn't leave him on a bed to just rot. That seems kind of morbid and awful. And what if a raccoon comes and drags him off? I don't know. I'm just like, I think I would have thought they would have wrapped him up and took him back to give him a proper burial if he had any family, but I guess he doesn't have any family. But if they just left him on a bed in Shiganshina, I'm like, wouldn't it have been better just to have buried him? To dig a hole and bury him? Than just leave him on a random bed? Because eventually people are going to come back, right? And they're going to walk in and see a skeleton on a bed. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too much into it, but I do like the symbolism of him on that bed. I like the symbolism of Erwin on the bed, and there's the scout hood draped over him, and they've crossed his arm over and everything, and there's like the 2 flowers in the vase, and yeah. I mean, it's really good symbolism, and I like the fact that Levi's like, no, I chose this to be his final resting place. I could have given him the injection, but it was my choice in the end, so it's not totally Eren and Mikasa's fault, even though they did act out of line. And then I like that both Mikasa and Eren both look very guilty and sad looking at Armin, because Armin's got to rationalize through this life-changing moment. And Armin's like, there's no way it's okay to have let Erwin die. And in that moment, Eren and Mikasa are like, yeah, we were pretty selfish. Because they were. You know, at the end of the day, Eren and Mikasa, they were selfish. They wanted to save their friend. But then Eren made that big speech about Armin being the savior of humanity. And how will we go on without the commander? Because that was the end-all be-all question. Erwin was the heart of the Survey Corps. So without him, he's like, how are we going to go on? And I love that moment that Hanji's like, yeah, it should have been Erwin. And I agree. If we're being brutally honest, I think it should have been Erwin. And she's like, it's a shame we were put in this position to begin with. Like, the fact that they had to choose was bad enough. That was the problem, right? And then Hanji says, Erwin entrusted Levi with the decision to use it. So Erwin knew that whatever decision Levi made was going to be the right one. So it would have been, we can't talk too ill of Levi's decision, because in the end, Levi's decision was really Erwin's. Because Erwin would have gone along with anything. And I honestly think that, I kept thinking in the last episode, and I didn't mention this in the reaction, in the discussion, I thought when Erwin slapped the syringe out of Levi's hand, I thought at some point Erwin was going to come to and tell them to pick Armin. At some point, I was waiting on Erwin to wake up for like a hot second before he died and been like, give it to Armin. He's the next generation. He knows he wants to see what's beyond the wall. I'm never going to see the truth. I've broken free. Like, I was expecting Erwin to say something that was similar to the conclusion Levi reached by the end on his own. But I do love that his last words were the question of, are there people outside the wall? And Niall talks back to it. Niall brings it up, and we'll get to that. But I do think that Erwin would have picked Armin, oddly enough. And poor Armin, Hanji's like, there's nothing else to say. Levi picked you, and that's the end of it. And Armin is just so shell-shocked. And then Hanji says, Erwin's life and a Titan's powers rest on your shoulder. You have that now. No matter what anyone says, that's part of who you are now. So, man, you talk about season 3, part 1. In episode 1, Armin kills a person, and Levi is like, okay, you've killed someone. You can't go back to how you were before you've done this action. You have to accept it and move forward. It's part of you now. And then 17 episodes later, it's like, well, you've ate this Titan shifter, and now you have the power of a colossal Titan. And you have the responsibility of being Erwin's successor, technically. Not successor to the Survey Corps, but the successor who's gained this power. That's part of who you are now. You just have to accept that. And that's a lot. And I don't blame Armin for being, like, terrified. And when he says, does that mean I need to be Erwin's replacement? I think that in that moment, Armin's like, I can't replace what Erwin was. And he can't. Erwin, and we'll talk about this in the recap, Erwin was such a great leader and commander and had that passion and soul that guided the Survey Corps. And he was a devil because he needed to be. He was a con man because he needed to be. He was adaptable and was able to become anything that was necessary for the sake of humanity at the time. And it was also to satisfy his own agenda as well. And Armin's like, I can't do that. Armin's like, I can't be a con man. I can't be a demon. And you can see where Armin's concerned. He's like, I'm not going to have the same spirit that Erwin did. That's just not possible. And then Aaron and Mikasa, they look so guilty. They're like, they know the same, they know it's true, right? And then Levi's like, hey, don't get me wrong here. You'll never be Erwin's replacement. Which is so true. Levi's like, you're not going to replace Erwin. That's not possible. No one can. No one can replace him. But the point is, I know you have a strength that nobody else has but you. It's like Levi is so blunt and seems so cold and distant, but then he says shit like that, and he's like, nobody has a strength like you have, and that's going to make you stand out just the same way it made Erwin stand out. And it's like, Levi, my dude, why'd I drop you down to A rank last season? And then, yeah, Levi says, I won't regret my decision. Because, yeah, by the end of it, Levi's like, I think I made the right choice, and I'm going to live with that, and you have to live with this choice as well. Even though you didn't choose anything, you chose to sacrifice yourself, and we were selfish and brought you back. I think it's the best decision in the long run. He's like, don't make these guys regret it. Levi's like, I don't regret my decisions. Make sure that Mikasa and Aaron, I love he grabs both of them by the head of their hair, make sure they don't regret it. Mm-hmm. And then Jean and Connie, or anyone else. And Phlox put down the telescope at that point. Don't make anyone else regret it. Because, yeah, Flock, he didn't want Armin to get that power. So now Armin's got to prove to Flock that it was the right decision, too. I feel bad for Armin in a sense because he's had a lot put on his shoulders now. Armin has had a lot put on his shoulders, and he's going to have a lot to prove. But I think Armin's up to it. I think Armin doesn't think he's up to it. But this, honestly, the development of him becoming the Colossal Titan, I am 100% for it. I love this. It's great. And don't regret it yourself either. Yeah, Levi's like, you are what you are. You gotta just live with that decision. Live with what's happened. Your mission is to live with it. Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it so much. And then Sasha, bless her heart. And Sasha just says, shut up! I love that levity. Isayama has like the worst sense of humor, like the darkest sense of humor. And it just gets Hanji laughing. I love it. Hanji saying that we're no match for Sasha. Like, even in this dark, desolate time where they're discussing all this existential dread, Sasha's just like, shut up. I'm so glad Sasha's okay. I'm amazed at this point that we've not had, I mean, granted, a whole near 200 soldiers died, but as far as named characters go, we've lost Moblet and Erwin and Bertolt and Marlowe. We've lost them, and then the Klaus, and then the 3 commanders. I really thought that Sasha or Connie were going to die in this battle. I really did. I really thought at some point that they were going to die, but that's not happened. Sasha's really injured, but I'm really glad that she's pulled through. Again, if we're talking real quick, and I'll probably mention this in the recap, if we're talking real quick that originally Isayama wanted her dead way back in season 2, I've thought about this ever since learning that. I was like, anytime I see Sasha and she's out of commission, I feel like that's just Isayama writing her out of the picture because he didn't originally have her there. And so in this whole thing where she's injured, I imagine Isayama with his script and his storyboarding, planning all this out, and originally not having Sasha there because he'd killed her off, and then being like, oh no, Sasha's still alive. And so writing her in. And so having her get injured and taken out of commission, I feel like that's something he had to do because originally she wasn't even there. So that's just something kind of neat because in this scene, they use her being there as levity and like a joke, but it's curious. And I wonder if she hadn't originally intended to be there, that whole it hurts, if that would have been really Bertolt and they didn't just pass it off as being Sasha, just invading Armin's subconscious. I don't know. But yeah, being the successor of Erwin as commander of the scouts, we're kind of in the same boat. Yeah, Hanji and Armin are both filling in Erwin's shoes. Hanji as being in the line of succession to take over the Survey Corps, and then Armin getting the injection. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. From here on out, we'll have to grin and bear it. Hanji's like, we both don't want to be in this situation. Hanji's like, neither of us wanted to take Erwin's place in terms of what we've done, but we don't have a choice. Erwin's dead. It's just the way that it is. Ugh. Okay. And then Armin seems like he's like, okay. And I love Hanji just looking. If it's not a problem for Armin, we should get going. So yeah, we're going to go to the basement. Just Levi, Aaron, Mikasa, and I. And then the others keep watch atop Shig and Sheena. Because that's so terrifying, the idea that there could still be something happening. I'm like, no. And I'm glad that nothing else happened. And then, yeah, Aaron's got the key. I love it. This, so good. The idea of having that key. I'll show you the basement that I've kept secret all this time. And it's funny because in the flashback there, the keyhole looks like the key's gonna fit in it, and then when they get there, it doesn't. And Levi's just like, screw it. But yeah, so Carla's saying that he keeps all his tools and medicine down there. I'm gonna guess that Carla doesn't know about the history and everything. And I like that in the flashback of Aaron, Carla's hair is really short. It's not long like it is now. She has really short hair. It's like chopped really close. But her hair's grown out since then. But I like that her hair was actually really short at one point. Interesting. And she looks a lot like Aaron. I guess that's to showcase how much Aaron looks like Carla, because she has really short hair there, and she looks a lot like Aaron in that moment. And it's dangerous for children. He's like, yeah. And so they're off. They got the new canisters of gas. It's all fine and dandy. Mikasa and Levi don't have their jackets, whatever. But yeah, the idea that we have this montage of that colossal titan of Bertolt showing back up with the steam and everything. Your intentions are the key. The key to saving humankind from this despair. God, and it's so weird to go back to season 1. Isn't that crazy? Look at how fresh-faced Erwin... And they use the same animation from season 1. It looks so weird. It looks so different, right? Erwin's face looks different. It's very distinct. But the idea that your intentions, the key to saving humankind from this despair. Man, back when we thought Aaron was going to be the end-all, be-all savior. Fun times. And Erwin gave him that key. And then we cut back to season 2, where Erwin was like, we have reason to believe the basement in Shiga and Sheena houses the secret of the Titans that even he's not aware of. It's like, if we can reach the basement, we'll be able to obtain information. Yep. And it'll help us break free from the Titans' century-long tyranny. So yeah, so I commented in the last episode, and I probably wasn't thinking about it, and you all have probably commented about it by now. But I noted that it didn't seem like Reiner and the others knew about the basement. They did. So I'm curious. My guess is obviously that Reiner, Bertolt, and Zeke, they knew they didn't have the key to the basement, so the chances are they probably couldn't get anyway. But Levi just kicked the door in. So Bertolt and Reiner and them didn't know where Aaron lived, though. So depending on at what point they got to Shiga and Sheena, but they'd been practicing sparring there, or they'd had that fight there. I'm just amazed they didn't look around and try to find the basement to begin with. But then that would have meant they looked in every single house and every single basement. So I guess it's not feasible that they did that, but I'm still amazed that they never left without questioning the basement at all. That they didn't question what was in there to begin with, right? Or what information. I'm curious, I guess my answer is I'm curious to see if Reiner ever asked Zeke, because Zeke clearly knows Grisha, if Zeke had an idea of what information would be in the basement. If Reiner was like, hey, Erwin and them are coming to Shiga and Sheena, they're going to go into this basement. What could be there that Aaron's father would have that we'd need to know about? And I'm sure that Zeke's probably like, oh, he probably is going to say this, this, and this, but we already know that it's not going to change anything, so it doesn't matter. I'm just amazed they didn't try to find the basement themselves. That interests me a little bit, that they make no mention of the basement at all. I love that shot of, I'm going to take a picture. I love that shot of Armin up on the wall next to Flock, with the coat wrapped around him, looking off at them flying away. I don't get good vibes from Flock. I'm going to just say it outright. I get suspicious vibes from Flock, right? And it may be something as simple as Flock tells the government on them when they get back. If Flock's like, they made the choice to save this random scout and not the commander, and they betrayed the Survey Corps and blah, blah, blah. I can see Flock doing something like that because he's a little shit. But I just don't get good vibes from him right now. And again, Isayama may make me put my foot in my mouth. He may make me eat my words, and I may regret having these thoughts about Flock. But I get an uneasy feeling with him. I get like a traitor vibe from him, right? And I don't know what he'd be a traitor for. I just, everything in the last episode, it's just weird, right? It's weird that Flock was the only survivor. It's weird that he found Erwin, that he took Erwin to them and tried to convince them head over heel to use the serum on Erwin for nefarious reasons, to make him go through hell again. And that after Aaron's speech and everything, he wasn't affected at all by it. He was like, nope. And then during this episode, he's very standoffish. So I just get like traitor vibes from him, but I don't know, like, could he be working for the Beast Titan in them? I don't know. I don't think so, but there's just a part of me where I was like, he ducked and missed and fell to the ground and it just worked out. I don't know. Something's off about Flock and I can't put my finger on it, but something just doesn't add up. I don't know. I'm getting bad vibes. And I can't place it. There's like, I'm missing a piece of information. So there's that, right? But I love that shot of Armin just with the cloak wrapped around him staring across the wall. Like that's such a good shot of him. And then he looks back towards Jean and Connie looking over Sasha. I love it. And you can tell Armin wanted to go with them to go find the basement, but he just couldn't yet because he'd been told not to. And then, yeah, going back through Shiganshina, going back through Almeria, seeing the Winnie the Pooh teddy bear, seeing the sign and everything's had like 5 years to grow up. And Aaron and them, it's like they're going through their hometown. It's like they're back in their hometown, right? After years and years, they're back and they're like walking through the streets and you get like the flashback and they're like seeing what everything was like when they were kids. Strolling through the town, the marketplace. It's so weird because like, yeah, the town here is very like medieval and not, advanced like the town where Grisha's from is at the end. The town where Grisha's from has bricks and it looks more modern, like World War II vibes, and this has a medieval vibe, so it's just totally different. It's so interesting, right? Everything is interesting. But yeah, the walls and the trees and everything growing up, and they go back to the square and they see the box where Hannes and all them were playing cards, and just like it's such a nostalgic, like back to episode 1, like everything that was happening. And we go back to the same imagery from episode 1 too, like the stone being on that person's body and like them running through the streets and just them remembering everything. And then there Carla with her hair grown out, with her herbs and everything, going through the city and them running after her. And then you cut back to them as, young adults, and it's such a different vibe. It's crazy. And then as they're running, it goes from being like a quiet, normal day in the town to the Shiganshina attack. And that's when they get to the basement. And it's crazy, like the stone that's there has moss grown on it and like birds, and everything is just, it's weird how the stone fell on the house. Like it perfectly crushed the house, but the location of where they live is fascinating, and it seems intentional, right? It seems intentional. I'm curious to know how they got such prime real estate in Shiganshina. I guess it's because Grisha's a doctor, that he gets the nicest place in town. I imagine, knowing what we know now about Grisha and knowing that he was from outside the walls and that he wanted to build this ideal home here. And there's a shoe, like a random shoe there. And I wonder if it was Aaron's shoe or Carla's shoe or what it was. But yeah, there's the flashback of Grisha. And I love that. I almost laughed out loud during the reaction, but I love when Aaron's like, when will you show me what's in the basement, Dad? And Grisha like so solemnly goes, who knows? It's like, Grisha's like, never. That's basically what he was saying. Like, I'm never going to show you what's in the basement because you're too young to understand. No. And then when, dire straits happen, then he changes his mind. But I love, he says to Aaron, perhaps when you realize the most important thing of all. And it's like, what is that? What is the most important thing of all? I mean, we could rationalize, is it that, that you're born special? Is it, related to family and friends, related to humanity itself, to freedom? Like, what does that mean? The most important thing of all. That's the thing. And then looking up to where she was doing the laundry. So yeah, so here's the thing. That little high point where they did the laundry, This house was on prime real estate in Shiganshina because it's at the top, like the top point of the city where you can't see over the walls, obviously, but it's like at one of the highest points in the city is where it's at. And it has a basement. And the basement, conveniently, because they're so high up, they were away from the fires. Well, the fires were the ones that Bertolt caused, so maybe they're not away. But they would be away from a lot of natural disasters. So, like flooding and stuff, the basement was high enough up that the waters wouldn't get into the basement and flood everything. That seems pretty important. And it just seems like they're at the highest vantage point of the city where you can overlook and see everything. That seems strategic. That seems like Grisha did that intentionally. And he's a doctor and has made a lot of money, I'm sure, through his practice. So he was able to buy a nice piece of land. You know, like you do. But yeah, and so then we go to the basement. So information available for public disclosure. Basement key. Grisha Jaeger, having come from outside the walls and thus knowing many secrets, entrusted the basement key to his son. The basement will likely reveal the mysteries of the world which Grisha couldn't mention to anyone. And if you look at the key, it's got the diamond, but it's got 3 points. 3 books, 3 points, 3 daughters, 3 walls. Rule 3, Siama. 3 seasons before we find the answers. It all seems intentional. But yeah, luckily, the fires that Bertolt started didn't make it that far. And I thought at the time that Aaron was going to become a Titan to move the rocks. But it makes sense. 1, you don't want to exert your energy. You don't want to overexert your energy. And 2, if Aaron turned into a Titan, it would get the attention of Armin and Connie and Sasha and them, and they'd probably think something was wrong. So then they'd probably think something was up if Aaron turned into a Titan. So it makes sense that he didn't do it, but it's interesting. And I like this point where Mika sent him collect all of the Tupperware. They collect all the plates, the dining set. And I don't know if there's a real reason that they did that. They're looking at the cups and stuff. I don't really know what the reason was that they found all that stuff. Unless they're going to take it with them. Unless they want to take something from home. If they want to take back with them some of the cutlery and everything that they found and saved. Something that like give them a reminder. Maybe that's it. I just found it interesting. There was that one moment where they collected all the silverware and stuff up. But they don't really talk about it. It just shows Aaron looking at the cup and stuff. And then they move on to the basement. It's an interesting moment. But yeah. So they get to the door and everything. And then I like that they make a pulley. And it's so quiet in these scenes. They don't really use a lot of talking. They just all kind of look at each other and just move stuff out of the way. And then, yeah, they make a lever and they just hoist that piece of rock off of there. And then, yeah. And then there's the door to the basement. And you know that Grisha made this as sturdy as possible because it was guarding so much. Right? That he made this to where it was the most sturdy basement that he could. And I'm going to be honest, you guys, we're finally here. It took us 3 seasons to get to this point, but we finally made it. I'm like, okay, all right, here we go. And when they got to the bottom of this thing and the key didn't work, I was like, are you kidding me? We came all this way and he gave you a key that didn't open the door? But I'm sure that Grisha was smart enough to know that, okay, you guys aren't going to just give up because this one key doesn't open the lock. You're going to kick the door in or something. And Levi was like, we didn't come all this way to get turned off by a key. And he just kicks. Levi has like the strongest legs in in the Wall Kingdom, right? And then, yeah, I'm certain it's the key Dr. Jaeger had. And Levi's like, well, it's fine. No big deal. Step aside. I love it. They're all like, oh, God. It's like, here's Levi. Just stick his way through. Luckily, he only kicks it far enough to where they just open the door because there are some chemicals and stuff in there. So luckily, he doesn't kick it to where it's like, going to destroy any of the bottles. But then, yeah, there was still oil in the lamp, luckily. And then, yeah, so in this room, I like this. It looks very normal. There's a set of scales on the desk for balance. He's got his books. He's got his notes. He's got medicines. He's got charts. It looks just like a very basic laboratory, like a doctor's lab, right? And there's books with like the looks like the Hobbit, like the trees and everything on them. I kept wanting to see, there's like all the medicines and everything. Mixing medicines. I'm wondering if Grisha has anything to do with the Titan serum, because Grisha is the doctor and he makes all the medicines. I wonder if he has anything to do with the Titan serum, now that we're thinking about it. I don't know. I'm like, I'm getting the vibes where things are starting to come together, and I'm like, okay, Grisha is a doctor. He has all these medicines. Was he, and the writing on the labels, God, the labels look like the labels on the vial with the Titan serum, and it could all just be coincidence, and you guys could argue and be like, oh, that's just standard issue bottles. But I'm like, it's making me curious if Grisha's the one behind the Titan serum. I could totally see it. I could. Right? And this medicine's all labeled correctly. This stuff's widely available. So Hanji's like, yeah, this is all stuff that's pretty normal you'd expect in a doctor's study. It's nothing out of the ordinary. And Levi's like, yeah, that would make sense, because if the military police showed up, you'd want them to think there's nothing suspicious here. Nothing suspicious. The military police comes calling, you want everything to look pretty kosher, like it's normal. No secret lab here. I was waiting for there to be like a trap door or something like that. And there's writings and stuff on the walls that are taped up. And I was curious if we'd ever look at any of those or if they'd be relevant. And then, yeah, Levi notes too, if you're hiding stuff from the interior police, you don't want it just laying out for anybody to see. And then, yeah, he tells them to quit standing around and start looking for things. And I love that he says Erwin's hunches are rarely wrong. Like, Levi's like, don't make us regret doing this. Erwin clearly thought there was something important here. So don't make us regret that, right? But yeah, and then we have the spy. I like the web. I don't know if that's saying... This show makes me question everything. Every moment, every frame, every screenshot. I'm like, is there some symbolic meaning behind it? This is what I was thinking. That's what the show does. And so there's the scene of the web, and there's the spider in the middle of the web between Eren and Mikasa. I don't think that means anything. It's just something to note, like you do. But yeah. And then Eren looking through all the books. I like that he's searching the books to see if like there's a secret key, or like those books that you open up and there's like the book is carved out and there's a button in it. I was waiting for Eren, that book that Mikasa sees, the blue book. I was waiting for her to like open it and there'd be like a button inside and like open up a secret wall, but that'd be too high tech for this world. But then yeah, she knocks over the cup. Thank God she knocks over that cup. It's fate, right? It's fate. Or is it Ackerman blood making her do what needs to be done, right? But then, yeah, so another all-nighter. Thanks, Mikasa. So, like, it shows him going down in the basement. It's another all-nighter, like he's thinking up things. And she brings him his food. Interesting. And she's fondly remembering it. But when she goes to pick up the cup, that's when she notices the keyhole in the dresser. The most random little thing. And it's like, yeah, that's it. And that's the keyhole. And when they opened up that drawer and there was nothing there, for a second I was like, Isayama, don't you dare actually do that and make us question why we came all this way for nothing. And I'm glad Levi was like, nope, that can't be it. No. Can't be it. It's a false bottom. And Eren, I like that Eren's so ticked off in that moment. He's like, you're kidding me. My dad's a hack fraud. And Levi's like, hold on. Look closer. I'm glad Levi has good eyes. It's a false bottom. And then, yeah, there's the books. And sandwiched in between the books are peppermint oil and charcoal. Things to keep, like, the books from rotting. Things to keep the books from, getting musty or moldy. To keep moisture and bugs away. Yeah, because peppermint oil and charcoal, yeah, that'll keep bugs away and the moisture away. Yeah. We were looking for something and these must be it. It's so tragic in this moment because if you think about it, Erwin would have loved to have seen this. Can you imagine? Like, Erwin would have been so excited to find these books. Erwin would have been like, oh my God, these books, the idea of a photograph. And the moment that Hanji starts reading the back of the portrait, I was like, Erwin, this confirms everything that he thought. And he would have been so proud and happy in that moment. Isayama, my dude, why you do these things? But a green book, a red book, and a brown book, or a black book. The royal colors, as it were. Isn't that funny? As soon as I saw the colors of the book, I'm like, they're red and green. They're red and green, which are the royal colors on that banner. They're the colors in the flashback that are on the curtains in Aaron's vision. Aaron has that vision in episode 1 of the baby's room and the curtains are red and green. Coincidence? I think not. And then one of the books is like brown or black. But the green book being opened, and there's a portrait on the inside. And Aaron's like, what in the world did my dad want to show me? The contents of episode 21 or 20. And I love this moment that Aaron has his hand on the book to open it, and Mikasa puts her hand on top of his. And it's the smallest moment, and she doesn't look up at him, but it's like, in that moment, it's almost like Mikasa telling Aaron, you're not alone in this. We're going to open this together, and it's going to be okay. And I really like that moment, because she's not like being flirty or anything. It's just she's showing solidarity with him. And then she looks up at him, and they both are like, okay, let's do this. And I love it. They've waited for this moment for so long, for like 5 years, and they're finally to it, to open this book together. And I love that they both open the book up at the same time. And then there's the portrait that starts it off. And then, so as we get to this point, we go back to Niall. That's when Erwin asks us. And what a crazy coincidence, right? The question that Erwin asks, his final words, and Levi being the only one that heard him, is the question that Niall brings up to the council. That's when Erwin asks this question. How do we know there's not more humans outside the walls? So Niall was there, and you can see Niall in the flashback. He's the kid with the freckles and his hair's parted a certain way. He's looking over at him like, but that was the question that little baby Erwin asked his dad, the teacher. And I'm sorry, baby Erwin was adorable. Like him with the little mini bolo, too cute. But yeah, and that's when his dad had to take him aside and tell him. He insisted that as long as we haven't been able to freely explore the outside, we can't know for sure if humanity was completely wiped out by the Titans. Which is true. You don't know. And I love that it cuts back to them in the Survey Corps as like young adults. And Erwin's like, the history books declare the rest were wiped out. And it's like, you almost get the feeling that Erwin talks to Niall about this, like these bigger than life questions, like on a daily basis. And Niall just puts up with it. He just eats his food. He's like, Niall's that friend when you're in a fandom and you're just talking endlessly about the show and the friend's not really in the fandom and they're like, yeah, that's really cool. I feel like Niall's that friend that's like, that's really cool that you think that. Right? And so then Niall's like, what? You've been talking this whole time? And Erwin as a young adult, from a child to a young adult, he's so serious. He has like such a blocky head and such angry eyebrows. And he's like, if you consider the history books should maintain an objective viewpoint. Like he's like, Erwin is a nerd. Like a handsome, badass nerd. But he's just like his father. He loves all these books and history. He's like, if you think about it, if these history books were objective, they would say that it should read, it is believed the rest of humanity was wiped out. Not that they were wiped out, because if you can't erase all doubt in that moment, right? You can't just say something without knowing for certain that it's true. And there's no way to know it's true if you're stuck in the walls. Right? And so Niall's like, you're just trying to find fault in anything and everything. And Erwin's like, I'm not. There's intent behind it. And the sad thing is that Erwin is correct. There is intent behind it. Erwin's like, this was all to make us believe that humanity doesn't exist outside the walls. And honestly, this show has done a really good job of making you believe that. Because, at the start of season 1, I was like, oh, well, this is kind of like The Village, and they're all just trapped inside the walls, and there's got to be people outside. And then season 2, you're like, yeah, there's got to be people outside. But then season 3, things start to get claustrophobic again, and this series plays tricks on you. It almost makes you think, well, maybe not. Like, it does, right? It makes you think the weirdest things. So it does kind of play tricks, especially when you are around these characters that have this ideology that there is nothing beyond the walls. So it's interesting. And so I like in this moment, too, that Erwin and Niall are sitting by themselves at the table off to themselves. It's like nobody else wants to hear Erwin's crackpot theories, just Niall, which I've given Niall such a hard time, but I really like his character now. And especially in these moments where you see how much he like was friends with Erwin and like they helped each other and he like listened to all of Erwin's theories. It's so, and at this point they're not in the Survey Corps, they're still cadets training. It's like, oh. And then Erwin's like, yeah, the royal government issued the textbook, so who's to say they couldn't decide what to put in it? And Niall's like, you're overthinking it, dude. And it's like, he's like, that's what you're calling splitting hairs. And the transition, I love that transition from Niall being like joking with Erwin, being like, you're just making assumptions, it's fine. And then they transition to him being older and realizing that Erwin was right. It's like, it's sad. And especially because they don't know Erwin's dead yet. And Niall saying, I was teasing him back then, but look at us now. Thinking the same thing. And then, yeah, and when Zachary said you'll have to apologize to the man himself, I was thinking, well, when you die, Niall, you'll have to apologize. But in this moment, they don't know Erwin's dead. They don't know. So they think he's just going to come back and he'll have to apologize to him then. It's like, it's really sad. And I kept thinking Pixis was going to be like, where's a lady and a drink? Like, that's what I kept thinking, that Pixis was tired of sitting there waiting on him. And he notes, he's like, it's not too long, it'll be dawn. If the mission was successful, if our heroes were to return, it's about that time. God, the way he says, if our heroes were to return. Yeah, about that. Our heroes indeed. And then, yeah, this girl, I always forget her name. She kind of looks like Petra, but she's not. Said the scouts returned a moment ago. And they successfully took back Wall Maria. And they're all shocked. They're like, we actually did it? We actually won something? Yes, but at what cost? And yeah, and everybody's celebrating and spreading like confetti and Flagel. Flagel is like cheering and everybody's hugging each other. And the sad thing is that they don't know that most of their family and kin that they sent off on this mission are probably dead. But yeah, Roy and the guy whose name starts with a P, the other reporter, they're like getting there to get the scoop, and everybody's got little Survey Corps flags. It's like, it's like, oh guys, I don't know how to tell you this, but things ain't all sunshine and rainbows. And then yeah, we get everybody at the back of, okay, so we have everybody at the back of here. All right. Everybody's at the back. And so we have, I'm looking at the horses coming up. And so we have Sasha and Connie, right? And Jean. They're all there. And it looks like Sasha is like bent down, like she's not fully recovered. And Connie and Jean are there. And you can see Rico, because Rico has platinum blonde hair, so she kind of stands out. You can see Rico and some other guards there by Sasha and Connie and Jean, which is interesting. And then over there on the other side of the wall, you have Hanji, Mikasa, Aaron, Levi, and Flock. And we don't really see Armin in this, which is interesting. We don't see Armin in this shot. Huh. Curious. Curious and curiouser. But yeah, and Mikasa, her scarf is like tied behind her neck, and we don't see their faces. We do not see their faces. I'm a little freaked out by that, if I'm honest. If I'm honest, I'm a little freaked out by that because we don't see what their faces look like. Oh, which in my mind makes me think that what they find out in the basement and what they found out in the books is not good. And Armin's not with them. Armin's not there. Armin wasn't there with them in that shot. I don't get a good vibe about that. So maybe Armin was coming up on the horse, maybe Armin was coming up on the horse on the trolley. I don't know. It's really late in the evening when I'm recording this. That's always the problem. I record these late in the evening, and so I'm like, I want to watch episode 22 now, or episode 20 now. Not 22, that's the end of the season. I want to watch episode 20 now, but those four, okay. And then there's the 3 books. So then we flash back, right? And we flash back, and then they look at the picture, and they're like, is this a portrait? Like, is this a drawing? And then Hanji's like, let me see that. Okay, so I want to talk about this. And they're like, oh, it's far too detailed to be drawn by a person. It's not. I want to talk about this because there's people in this drawing, okay, that looks like Grisha, right? It looks like Grisha. And in the portrait, that woman does not look like Carla. And then there's a kid in the lap with like tiny little legs, like little bitty legs and arms. Okay, theory time. Because as soon as I saw that, I'm like, that looks like Grisha, does not look like Carla, and does not look like Aaron. And I don't think, so it's either one of two things, right? It's either one of two things, okay? Either, but then it's kind of a weird thing. So who that woman could be, it could be Faye, right? His sister. It could be Grisha and his sister Faye. Because Faye looks a few years, like maybe 2 or 3 years younger than Grisha. So this could be Grisha right before the events of episode 11 of Bystander. This could be Grisha back on the other side of the wall with his sister Faye. It could be that situation where it's him and Faye, and this is Faye's child in her lap. And because let's say if Grisha was 20 when this photo was taken, and his sister Faye was like 17 or 18. There's no reason to think she couldn't have a kid at that age. So this kid could be Faye's child, and that could be Grisha and Faye. So I'm gonna say it. This child looks like Zeke. Looks like baby Zeke. The way that his hair looks blonde. His hair looks blondish. It's parted similar to the way that Zeke's hair is parted. So, okay. If that is the case, then Zeke could be Faye's child. And Zeke may not be as old as we think he is. He's got the facial hair, but he may be only like 5 or 6 years older than Aaron. He may be like 21, right? It's not unheard of to believe it. And if he's been the Beast Titan and he's aging as he goes, then he may look older than he actually is. I commented back a few episodes ago, I was like, Zeke acts really childish sometimes, right? Like he just has like, he doesn't act like an older man. He acts less mature, right? Especially in episode 16. In episode 16, when he was like, yeah, and I'm gonna throw these rocks at you. He didn't act like an adult. He was acting like a kid, right? So I think that the fact that he seems older could be the fact that he's a Titan shifter and he's aging more rapidly. I think that could be it. So it would stand to reason if this woman in the picture is Faye and the little boy in her lap is Zeke, that Zeke would only be like maybe 5 years older than Aaron, and Aaron's 15 now, so Zeke would be like 20 or 21. I could totally see that. I could see that. Sure. Okay. That's theory number one. I don't think that's Aaron. Hair doesn't look right. It's not dark enough. She doesn't look like Carla. So either that is Faye, and Faye and Zeke in her lap, and there's Grisha. So if Zeke is a victim of Grisha, like Aaron is a victim of Grisha, it could be very likely that Grisha injected Zeke the same way that he did Aaron, and that's why he's saying that we're both victims of Grisha. Maybe that's it. Who knows, right? Could be it. But there's that reason. So if that's the case, that would make Zeke and Aaron cousins, because Grisha would be Zeke's uncle and Aaron's father, so they would be cousins. So that's scenario number one. That's scenario number one. Scenario number two is that woman is Grisha's first wife, and Zeke is Grisha's son. That's scenario number two. Is that's the case. That Grisha had another wife, had a second wife, Grisha had another wife, and they had Zeke, and Zeke is his first son, and then something happened, and Grisha got separated from Zeke and his wife, or maybe the wife died, and maybe something happened to Zeke, but the wife died, and Grisha got banished from the kingdom. We don't know, but something happened, or Grisha left. We don't know. Something happened, and Zeke and his father were separated, and then Zeke went to the Wall Kingdom, married Carla, and had Aaron. And Aaron and Zeke are brothers. So there's that scenario. I kind of want to lean more towards the first one, that Zeke is Faye's child. I want to lean more towards that. But it's not unreasonable to say that Grisha could have had a first wife and a kid, and something happened to them, and then he moved on and married Carla. It's not unreasonable. I mean, hell, it happens in other stories. So Yeah, that's my theory. That little kid in the lap, I think that is Zeke. Because the hair it's golden hair, it lays a certain way, and their eyes look similar. So I think that Zeke is either Grisha's son or his nephew. I think that's it. I don't think that they're brothers. I don't think by the end of this episode that we get that established. I don't think that they're brothers. No. I'm sure that episode, I was like all surprised back last episode. I was like, I figured it out. And it's like, I connected the dots. It's like, you didn't connect shit. So I think that either Zeke is Grisha's son or his cousin or his nephew. One of the two. And that would make Aaron and him either cousins or brothers. If they're brothers, it's going to be really weird. But yeah, okay. But again, that would give him cause to be like coming to rescue you because they're close family. So yeah, weird. But then yeah, okay. And Mikasa's like, there's handwriting on the back of it. And then they say, this is no illustration. Instead, this uses light reflected off of off a subject and burns the image on special paper. And it's called a photograph. It's so weird having to explain that to someone that doesn't know what a photograph is. You have to explain the mechanics of it and how it works. But I like that Grisha, that troll, Grisha doesn't tell us who's in the photo. Or does he? Yeah. I come from a place outside the walls where humanity lives in elegance. Okay. Humanity has not perished. So, okay, looking at this photo, that clearly is Grisha. And he has the coat on, it has like the chain around it. Oh, okay. Again, the whole thing with the chains. You had one of the walls, and the wall banner had the roses and the chains coming off of it. I'm like, is that tied in? And this woman, and that little kid with the hair parted to the side, that kid looks like Zeke. I'm convinced that little child is Zeke. And then this woman, she could be Faye, but her hair almost looks too light. I don't know. But that little kid looks like Zeke. That little kid does. I'm convinced that little kid is Zeke. The question is that his father or his nephew? And I'm thinking, is his son or his nephew? And I'm thinking that Zeke's Grisha's son too. That he's Aaron's brother. Oh my God. I really want to watch that other episode now. But I'm going to wait. But yeah, but that clearly is Grisha. And I don't know who she is. Humanity has not perished, though. I pray the person who finds this book is a fellow patriot. A fellow patriot. Meaning somebody on their side. But humanity has not perished, and they live in elegance. And then we cut to the end credit. But then, yeah, we need to go to the ending here. Yep. And so, yeah, hurry, Faye. We'll lose it unless we're fast. They wanted to see the Zeppelin. I love the parallels, though, in this. There are so many parallels in this moment to the Wall Kingdom. The idea of Aaron and Mikasa, of Grisha and Faye. The idea of the two siblings or the two friends running through the city to see something, right? And it parallels how in episode 1, Aaron and Mikasa were off to see the Survey Corps come back. And in this, they're off to see the Zeppelin, right? And then the woman stops them and saying, I told you not to forget your armbands when you go outside. And this woman, she doesn't look really like Grisha or either of them. So again, I'm a fan of World War II history. And I find this whole idea of wearing the armbands, it feels very like Germany during World War II when the Jewish population had to wear armbands signifying that they were Jewish. And they also wore the Star of David on those armbands. And this armband kind of has like a star insignia too. So it's very, the imagery and symbolism is not lost to me. Not at all. So I'm like, okay. And they can't go outside without it. Okay. And then I love the mom's like, Grisha, you must absolutely not leave the walls. Like this has become a problem. She's like, you need to stop. Like, do not do this. And of course, Grisha, he's like, I got it, Mom. And of course, Grisha's kind of like Aaron. He kind of has a rebellious streak, right? And then we'll be back. And then they see the Zeppelin. There are Zeppelins, yeah. So it looks like there's like insignia around that looks like Japanese around the town. There's people in the streets. It looks very like it looks more like 1900s rather than like the 1700s or 1600s. It looks much more modern, right? And there's the windows and everything look more modern. There's bricks and the chimneys. When I first thought as to how I should start my story, I immediately thought of that day. And then they're off to see the Zeppelin. So here's the thing. I want to go back real quick and see the people in the town, right? Some people are wearing the insignia, but others are not, which is interesting. There are some that are not wearing it. Like, well, I guess, yeah, some are and some are not. Okay. Huh. Interesting. I wonder what the significance is. I guess we'll find out why they wear that. And then like going on the cobblestone. Yeah, because some of the women in the background don't have it on, but this guy that they bump into has it. And he's like, be careful, watch where you're going. But yeah, some people in the background don't have it on either. Okay. And then they say it's leaving. And there's like drums of oil. And then that little girl looks so sweet. Must be nice. Aw, and she has like a little Levi kerchief. Huh. One day when I'm rich, will I be able to ride on an airship too? So like only the wealthy get to do that. And then Grisha says, what are you talking about? There's no way either of us will get rich. Huh. Okay. So I'm wondering if in this society that it's all very like, there's just no chance of that happening, that it's pretty much determined who's going to be wealthy and who's not. Which is funny because Grisha ends up becoming a doctor and kind of becomes wealthy. So in the other world, interesting. And she's like, it must be nice. I wonder what we could see from up there. And this shot was so cool because at first you're like, there's a wall. And I was like, oh, funny. We're getting parallels. We're getting wall kingdoms and wall kingdoms. Okay. All right. That's interesting to see. But the Zeppelin, when they pan down, it's like half a wall. But there it goes. But this city is clearly separated from the rest of the city. And it's like, you don't get to go to the wealthy part of town. You have to stay in the place where you're supposed to be. So it's kind of curious, right? It's curious because from the surface, just from this, you have within the wall kingdom, there are 3 walls that clearly delineate different class systems, right? They clearly delineate different class systems. You have Wall Maria, that's kind of the more rural area, and then Wall Rose is kind of the middle class. It's a little more urban. Then Wall Scene is like the government, the posh district, right? But in any of those walls, you can freely move between kingdoms. There's nobody stopping you from moving. There's no checkpoint like there is here. You can move freely within kingdoms. It's just you don't get to live inside Walsena unless you're part of the military police, but you can travel there all you want. Here, there's like a military checkpoint at all the gates. And so it's funny because during the Wall Kingdom, there's no military checkpoints because inside the walls, everybody's free because there's no Titans to attack, right? It's just outside the walls they're worried about the Titan attacks. In here, it's like the classism is military enforced because there's not that threat of the Titans, right? So it's a little bit different. Okay. All right, we're getting that. And them checking people coming in and out, like with documentation. And okay, the guy's coats there, I'm trying to see if they look a little bit similar to like to Ymir's, like the guys that took Ymir, kind of, maybe. We don't know. But yeah, Faye wanted to see it, and Grisha's like, I'll take you to go see the Zeppelin. And I love that shot because his eyes don't look like Aaron's eyes. Aaron has Carla's eyes, but the color is the same. And Grisha seems to have that same sense of freedom and rebellion that Aaron has inherited. Because he just has that, he's like, he wants Faye to be happy. And so he's like, fine. He's like, when he does his little like badger face, his eyes, his brows furrow, it looks very much like Aaron. It's kind of cool. But yeah, he grabs her and he's like, let's go, Faye. My teacher said the airships take off and land at a place near here. Let's go see. And then the girl says, but Mom said we're not allowed to leave the walls. And he's like, it'll just be for a bit. Oh, and then yeah, they say get back here. Okay. And he says, we'll be right back. Oh. Okay. And he's like, that naive day of my youth when I had to face the truth of this world. Oh. Yep. Okay. And that's so interesting that Grisha, and then I want to take a picture of him and Faye. I have a feeling this isn't going to be sad at all. This won't be traumatizing one bit. Right? Ooh, okay. Okay. Yeah, and I like how it's grainy. The flashback's a little bit grainy, like there's a filter over it. It's very interesting. But yeah, I had to learn the truth of this world. So yeah, Grisha's going to have to face some hard truths, kind of like Aaron. But I'm so curious. Okay. So yeah, that leaves a lot of questioning there of... It's funny because in the medievalish world of the Wall Kingdom, the fact that the Titans are around, it seems kind of natural that Titans would be there, right? Because it's very medieval. It seems kind of like a fantasy world. It's very Game of Thrones. Like, you almost expect there to be monsters or something kind of medieval and primal there. Because they're not like in this, they're kind of like a deconstructed, non-civilized, I mean, they are civilized, but it's not sophisticated like modern times, right? It's kind of like in Demon Slayer. In the anime Demon Slayer, the story starts out in a very rural area that doesn't have a lot of modern technology. So the idea of demons and monsters being there kind of seems to go more with it because it seems more natural in some way, if that makes sense. But then when Tanjiro goes into the city, it's less obvious that the demons are there, right? They kind of blend in with society and it's less obvious, right? In this world, it kind of seems the same way. It's like, it seems unnatural for there to be Titans there. Because honestly, what I was expecting, I don't know what I was expecting. I was expecting the city where Reiner, I'm assuming this is the same city Reiner and Bertold are from. I'm assuming they're from this same city. I could be wrong. But I'm assuming they're from a city that's this or a city near here, right? I'm assuming that's the case. But for some reason, because the history books, it's funny because the way we've been conditioned as the audience to think of like the ED in season 2 and things like that is that you think the city is going to look kind of like what Shiganshina looks like now. Like the Titans have overrun it. They've destroyed things. They've killed people. And there's just like this overgrown city and remnants and ruins left over. But no, this city is like fully flourishing and perfectly fine despite the fact that supposedly the Titans have ransacked it. Or at least that's what we've been led to believe this whole time, that the Titans have just destroyed the lands outside the walls and there's nothing left. And so in season 2, when we learned that there's a city outside the walls, I was thinking, okay, a city by the sea, it's been wrecked by the Titans, but humanity has found a way to survive there and fortify it maybe, or the Titans are working with them, something's going on. And in here, the city is perfectly fine. Everything looks great. It's kind of ominous with the military checkpoint, but everything else looks hunky-dory. I'm still wondering about the whole sun badge. I wonder, are the people with the sun badge just Titan shifters? Are they all Titan shifters if you have that badge? Does that signify that you're somebody that can become a Titan shifter? Is that what that signifies? Because I feel like not everybody had a badge like that on. I don't know. I'm very curious. The good news is we're going to find answers next episode. The bad news is we have to wait till next episode. So it was like, So it's, yeah, this whole thing was like a big carrot on a stick. Isiam was like, I'm giving you the basement, but you gotta wait one more episode till you find out the good stuff. And I'm like, this end credit was just such a tease. But it's okay. It's fine. I can wait. I have the patience. So yeah, this was a really good episode. I'm glad Armin's up to speed. He wasn't in that shot at the end, so that's weird. But maybe he was just about to join them. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But we don't know how much they've read before they got back and what that information is going to do and change the situation there. I'm guessing the next episode we'll figure out what all Grisha wrote down in those books about his story. And I'm so damn excited. So if you celebrate Christmas on Patreon there, Merry Christmas to y'all. Thank you for watching me and listening to my ramblings. For those of you, by the time this airs on YouTube, happy 2022! Next time, Tuesday will be episode 20. And then next Saturday, a week from now, will be episode 21. And then we'll almost be to the end of the season and the recap and the OVAs and season 4 and lots of stuff still yet to come, but I'm pretty excited. So I'm curious to know your comments down below, what you all thought of this reaction to this episode. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas, happy holidays, happy New Year, and thank you all for joining me and being with me so far throughout this journey watching Attack on Titan. So in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with episode 20 of Attack on Titan. Bye.